In this video, we will show the entity schemas within Alumio. An entity schema can be used for two different things. First of all, to build up a specific entity schema for a system or for an object or an entity of showing how the object should look like. In most cases, what we see is that it's actually a reference to a specific page, and that specific page then shows, okay, what is the information in there. So in this case, we could also go from here and actually click on the reference page, and then from there see how the entity would look like. We can also do that. For example, there's a few standard built in for example, Magento 2. How a Magento 2 product attribute entity should look like is defined within this reference over here. However, you can also create your own and your own custom made. So for example, this demo schema. So this demo schema, you actually see that we didn't put anything in the schema. So it is not necessarily to make the schema that way to also then validate towards the schema of what comes in. In most cases, actually in practice, we don't see this being used too much because you're somewhat validating if a platform has their API not changed, which in most cases doesn't change unless they change their versioning. But if they change their version, they're also having mostly a different endpoint. So this is mainly used if you have a custom API endpoint or a custom system in the first place, and therefore you want to validate what kind of data comes in. However, validating what kind of data comes in is also possible through entity transformers itself. Another thing which is actually pretty much always used are these identifier paths that are actually representatives of how the data should look like when it comes in. So what these do, those are identifiers that are in the root of the object the moment that the identifier or the entity data is split up. And it will check those entities or those identifiers if they are there, and then it will use those to actually show that in the monitoring and logging, but also use those for the identifiers, for example, in storage. So how would it look like for specific data? So if we go to tasks right now that have this demo schema, we can also see that it has the identifier of the ID in combination with the email address, which we can also see happening from here. We are not limited to just two or just one. We can add as many as we would like. And we can also see that if we zoom into the specific data, that we have the identifier of 10 with that email address that is also mentioned there. This makes it very easy for the monitoring and logging to see what kind of data comes in, what kind of data goes out. And we can also, of course, apply those filters to it of seeing when which data came in at which exact moment, for example. So those are the usages of the entity schemas within Alumio.